We welcome you inside our NEC Front Row Studios. This is NEC Women's Basketball on the Run. Hello everyone, I'm Craig D'Amico, once again coming in off the bench for Ralph Ventre. Ralph got a new team member added to his family this week. Congratulations to the Ventre family. Certainly some exciting news, and also some exciting news if you're a Robert Morris Colonials fan. Let's take a look at where we stand. For the second straight season, the Robert Morris Colonials stand as the lone remaining unbeaten, following victories this past weekend against Wagner and Sacred Heart. In Monday night's battle for first place, the Colonials completely controlled the post, with the tag team duo of NECWBB and Ire Ozzy Mamadou combining for 30 points and 22 rebounds. The Colonials complete a second straight perfect January. They haven't lost in January since 2017 and now own a 2-game cushion over Sacred Heart in the standings. Robert Morris will look to equal last year's 9-0 start when they traveled to New Jersey to meet FDU on Saturday. With a win, the Colonials would be the 9th team since 2000 to start 9-0 in conference play and the second to do it in consecutive years, behind St. Francis, who did it 3 straight years from 2002 to 2004. Now, following a tough Pennsylvania road trip, the Sacred Heart Pioneers sit in second place, protecting a 1-game lead over St. Francis, Brooklyn, and SFU. The Pioneers will host the Terriers coming up on Saturday. And of course, you can read all about Sacred Heart. We had a roundtable chat with grad students Erin Stork and Kiana Yee in this week's edition of the NEC Women's Basketball Fast Break column on the NEC Overtime blog at necovertime.com. Mount and Bryant, they're tied for 5th place in the standings, 1 game out of the top 4, while FDU and Wagner are in a 7th place tie, 1 game ahead of Central Connecticut State. Now, this Saturday, we hit the halfway point of the conference season, so as Yogi Berra would say, it's getting late pretty early. But consider this. In 2015, St. Francis Brooklyn were 3-6 at the halfway mark. They'd go on to win the NEC title. Last year, the Pioneers were 3-6, eventually 3-8, but they made it all the way to the semifinals. So as we've seen before, how things stand at the halfway point in the standings doesn't always end up telling the final story. As we've seen, this league can be so wild that even Tony Romo wouldn't be able to predict this. Still plenty of basketball to be played. She gets buckets. Plenty of great shooting performances this past week to choose from, but we're going to narrow it down to Courtney Zezza of the St. Francis Red Flash. Former SFU head coach Joe Haig once told me a while ago that when Zezza steps back and hits threes, stretches out that defense, that's how you know it's going to be a pretty good day for SFU, and that was indeed the case this past week, as Zezza, known primarily for her blocking ability, put together her most impressive offensive weekend of the year. 17 points on Saturday and 15 points on Monday, a combined 55% shooting for those 2 games, including 47% from behind the arc. 8 combined made 3-pointers. Zezza recorded 5 threes in the game against Sacred Heart, including a key sequence in the final minute of the 3rd quarter where she connected on 3 in a row. Now, some honorable mentions. Zezza's teammate Jess Kovac had 53 points on the weekend with 63% shooting. After 23 points on Saturday, she woke up feeling dangerous on Monday, 30 points and 6 for 10 from 3-point land. Kovac now 4 points behind Wagner's Terrence Bailey for the most points by any player in NEC basketball history. Also, shout out to Juliette Lawless for Mount St. Mary's, 28 points on Monday night against the Terriers on 11 for 19 shooting. Speaking about the Mountaineers, time now for our Twitter timeout. And our tweet this week comes from @MountAthletics back on Saturday. Special day at the Mount as we welcomed in a new class to the Hall of Fame and retired the jersey of Mount women's basketball great Vanessa Blair, #MountProud. Blair, who played for Mount from 1988 to 92 as a member of Mount's first Division I recruiting class, was a former 2-time NEC Player of the Year, came back to coach the team for several seasons, winning Coach of the Year, and was selected to the NEC Hall of Fame in 2013. Blair's number 24 joins former teammate Susie Rolick as the only 2 Mountaineers to have their jersey retired up in the rafters at Knott Arena in Emmitsburg. Stats amazing! And on Monday night, the SFU Red Flash defeated Wagner 107-70. The 107 points were the 2nd most scored in a single game by an NEC team this year. The Flash shot 61% from the floor and made a season-high 18 threes. But none of those were the most outstanding offensive number and the most amazing stat of all. St. Francis recorded 31 assists on 39 made field goals. Interim head coach Susan Robinson-Fruchtel has been preaching balance and sharing the ball all season, and you can't really get better than they did on Monday night. Although she was quick to point out, because of the rich history of St. Francis women's basketball, Monday night's 31 assists only good for second best in program history. And now our game to watch. This week, the NEC schedule departs from the usual Saturday-Monday format and will only feature action on Saturday afternoon, highlighted by our game to watch, our ESPN3 Game of the Week with St. Francis visiting Mount St. Mary's. Now, both teams come in with a ton of momentum. St. Francis swept this past weekend, averaging 96 points on 55% shooting, while Mount has won 3 in a row and 4 of their last 5. The game will feature the top 2 scorers in the league. Jess Kovacs, 21.5 points per game, 4 points shy of becoming the league's all-time scorer, as we mentioned. And Juliet Lawless, 18.7 points per game for the Mount, 22.7 points, and 54% shooting over this current 3-game win streak. Now, keep your eye on the three-point line. These are the top 2 teams in three-pointers made and three-pointers attempted in league play. And when they met back on January 7th, they combined for 54 three-point attempts. 45% of all the shots taken in that game were three-pointers. The game featured 5 ties, 12 lead changes, and came down to a Daley Sullivan 3-ball try, falling just short in the final seconds to allow the Red Flash to escape with a 2-point win. Now, this game has plenty of early postseason implications. The winner will finish in the first half of conference play in the top 4, and a St. Francis win would clinch the head-to-head tiebreaker, which could come into play down the road. Also this weekend, Sacred Heart will look to rebound at home against St. Francis Brooklyn in a battle for second place, and Robert Morris will look to get to that 9-0 mark that we mentioned earlier when they visit FDU in the Garden State. And of course, a reminder that all games are free of charge and available on NEC Front Row. That'll do it for this week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Craig D'Amico, and this has been NEC Women's Basketball on the Run.